up a, what am I saying?
Hold on a second. RSA 198.27.
I see what you've done. Okay. All right, we're going to be opening up a public hearing under RSA 198:20-C, which is in regards to our internet filtering policy and withdrawal of funds. As you know, we have to have a public hearing for it. So I'm going to turn over to Superintendent Cullison to explain about the internet filtering policy. We have Tom here for any questions that we might have.
Okay, this is hearing number one, and basically, we're required by RSA to have a public meeting to present our computer and communications policy statement. It's included in a packet. I'm not going to read through the whole statement since most of the people that are here from the public are familiar with this communication policy statement. Basically, we have some minor changes to this, but because there were a few changes, we felt it was important to present this again. So we have Mr. Tom Rubina, who's our Director of Technology, here with us this evening to answer any questions that anyone might have and kind of give us a quick overview of the policy. So Tom, you're up.
Do you want to just give a quick explanation as to the changes?
Well, honestly, the only place we really made a change was just in kind of the off-site stuff. Now we have the one-to-one. We wanted to clarify a little bit that pertains to that type of stuff. And that may actually be in our one-to-one policy, not in the computer agreement, but it's kind of falls under that LinkedIn. So it's in a separate document, but we added that.
Okay, and I think one of the reasons that we are having the public hearing on this is we suspect we've done this years ago. We cannot find, through the minutes where we probably had the public hearing, because I believe when the school opened up or when we started to have to present the technology report to the state, you had to have a public hearing on it, I think, in the very beginning. So we just can't find the minutes on it, so we're making it official now because it is required.
Correct, yeah.
Correct, yes.
Requires that we do this to receive you regularly.
Right, right.
And this would be on file indefinitely, I understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so we won't have to repeat this every year, but
It's a once and done.
is there any questions for Tom in regards to the internet policy? Okay, seeing none, have a great dinner. And we will move on to the withdrawal of funds. Earlier tonight, the Building and Grounds Committee made a recommendation to approve the withdrawal of $72,000, right? We have that?
$72,250.
Yeah, from the athletic field fund to recover the track, resurface the track, which needs to be done probably about every 5 to, I think, 7 years. And the amount from Maine and Tennis, the lowest bid was $72,000, which we had already approved at a previous meeting. This is just to approve having the funds withdrawn from this fund to go into our general fund to pay for it. So I don't know if anyone has any questions in regards to that.
What was the amount again?
$72,215.
Thank you.
And you can make a motion now.
Andy did report at the Building and Grounds meeting that the work will begin on May 15th, August 15th, and it should be done by August 17th.
Yeah, it's about a 2-day process. They'll be
Yeah.
striping, I think 2
Striping
days
will be done
after,
after
yeah.
that.
Yep. So what I'll need is a motion to approve the withdrawal of funds from the, which fund is that?
So moved.
Athletic
Second.
maintenance.
Athletic maintenance fund.
So move second.
Okay, is there any discussion, questions, or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Who moved that?
Terry.
Terry and, yeah.
And I got Jason.
Now I just lost my place. Okay, is there any further comments about either of these two items? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and we will move on to public input. Hi. If you could state your name.
Sam LeBar,
Okay.
and I'm here as a Alton resident, taxpayer, and Crossing Mountain teacher, and I have 2 students at ACS. I wrote Chairperson Meyer a letter this week. Did that get to everybody? Do you know?
I did read the letter, and I just wanted to make clear, I understand your concerns.
Yeah.
But in reality, the appropriate forum is Alton Central School, because we align our calendar with Governor Wentworth. And basically, Prospect's calendar has been consistent and remained the same. I believe Alton Central is the one that is now opening later than normal. So I think the appropriate forum for that is Alton Central School. So I just wanted to let you know that right up front. I mean, you can definitely speak, but in regards to the fact that we have to work with Governor Wentworth because of the program that's up there.
Right.
So I just think that the appropriate forum really is Alton Central.
Yeah, and I plan to speak at the school board as well,
Okay.
but I think my concern also extends to Bonstead, because my bigger concern is that I feel that my concern is with the school calendars, and I feel that all 3 should be on the same page. That I realize that we're all 3 different districts, but in reality, they both feed into the high school. So yes, my concerns came about because Alton changed their calendar, and it's a later start date and a potential earlier date out. But as I was looking through, well, all Bonstead and Prospect and Alton, there's many early release days that are separate, that are different. So yeah, if I could just highlight my major points, is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, so, again, I'm asking for options to be explored that all 3 districts come together and have the same school calendar. And from a taxpayer's perspective, I am concerned that because with buses, when, they share buses with Bonstead and with Alton, right, they go to the elementary and then pick up the high school. And when there's different days, again, with early release or starting later or ending sooner, like Bonstead does blizzard bags, and so they get out sooner than Prospect. As a taxpayer, it concerns me because you'll see buses come up here and then leave with only like 2 high school kids. And so the money that both towns are spending should be a concern when they're not on the same calendar. As a parent, and again, this is a Bonstead concern as well, not just Alton, because there are different calendars. It concerns me. Obviously, I teach at the high school, and the 2 young ones at Alton, there's different calendars. But as a parent, if you had a sibling, children in the high school and either elementary school, with different starting and end days, that would be a concern for planning family vacations or potential hardship. You rely on your older siblings to babysit younger siblings. And as a Prospect Mountain High School teacher, we've worked hard to, we continue to make strides to communicate with our feeder schools, but if we go down this path of having different start and end dates, different teacher work days, different early release days, then we can't communicate with our feeder schools. And some years have been better than others with certain departments working together, but that's a concern as well. And again, I realize this is just all changing to the hours, but if you look at all 3 schools, they do vary somewhat. They're not the same. And so I understand Prospect has to align with Kingswood. I feel like Alton and Bonstead should also.
Well, I know Bonstead, their start date is tied to our bargaining agreement. So that's something that is clearly stated in the bargaining agreement what the beginning date is. Also, Bonstead has separate buses for the high school students. We do not share between the elementary and the high school. There's one that migrates between the 2, but we actually have a separate contract for high school
So
busing.
they don't pick up elementary
No.
like Alton does?
No.
Yeah.
So it's completely separate from that, so.
I mean, again, I understand
Yeah.
it's 3 different districts. But reality is they both feed into the same high school.
Right.
Reality is parents are dealing with juggling and.
I mean, I think as far as the start dates, again, that's a bargaining issue, that is something that, you know, Barnstead's not gonna, we start before Labor Day normally.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that has to be bargained with the teachers, if
Yeah.
there's ever a change, so that's not just something that Barnstead could just, you know, immediately
Well, I
do, so.
understand there's so much more to the picture, but, right, just from my, again, I just want to give
Right.
one perspective, from my perspective. And again, the teachers at the high school trying to work and trying to communicate, if they're on different schedules and there's less alignment with teacher work days, it makes it impossible.
Right.
Where typical districts have, or they all feed to, you know, they're all the same and they're all the same. So I understand there's so many other. it's
And
just-
I can tell you that the two districts do work very closely with the high school when it comes to the calendar, and they do the best that they can to match everything up. There's gonna be times like this year where it just wasn't feasible. But I know it's something that you work with both of these superintendents as far as the school calendar goes. I mean, I know at Barnstead, we voted sometimes 2 or 3 times on a draft calendar because there was a change in another district, so.
Yeah.
It is a work in
And again,
progress.
Alton changing
Yeah.
last minute, that maybe that threw the monkey wrench. But,
Yeah.
okay.
But I mean, well, certainly it's something that you can discuss with your counterparts in both the towns to see about, you know, exploring in the upcoming year that comes up.
I think the Alton's calendar was back in May. It wasn't really last minute. It also does align more with Barnstead as far as the start date. As far as the workshops, I don't know, a lot of the workshops are not done, or professional development is geared towards elementary professional development and high school, correct? So it's not necessarily that it always has to be on the same day. But
Right, again, just one perspective from a
Right.
teacher who works here, and again, just another perspective to throw in. Right, elementary tends to work together, but we have made strides in the past of different departments. Because that's typically something that's done in whole districts of high school meeting with middle school teachers. And we're not able to do that as much if the days are different.
you do realize that we have 3 different superintendents.
Right, I realize everything.
Just mentioned. You keep
I know it's quite complicated and
You keep
easier said than
you keep
done.
talking about the same district and it
No,
just.
I know, yeah.
So
really
I
is the
think
same
you'll
district.
you'll
No, I know it's not.
approach
yeah.
that with your counterparts, so when it,
It's
the
something we
upcoming year
discussed,
is
yes.
something that
Right.
they'll look at even
Right.
further, to sit there and see if there's any way that we can try and do it. Again, as I said, Barnstead's limited because we have to go by what the bargaining agreement says, but.
Yeah, in Kingswood and there's all these other factors.
Right, right,
Just wanted
so.
to throw one other concern.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi.
I just like to back up what she said, I agree, I'm a taxpayer in town, I think she makes some very valid points, I know it's complicated, but I just wanted to address the Kingswood. I think that we do not follow Kingswood's calendar. Kingswood starts typically, from what I know, after Labor Day, and we start before, so we are not actually on the same calendar. I know we look at the Kingswood calendar, and we try to align stuff, but we always start off earlier than they start after Labor Day. And we do it for, I know, we try to align it because we have a lot of kids that are going there, but there's that week when kids are here in the building, or they don't have to come, or they get dropped off and they're here in the cab, because our calendars aren't aligned, so I just want to just clarify that for the record.
Oh, there's a 7-day difference, okay.
Yeah, 7.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, is there any further public input? Okay, seeing none, we will close public input and agenda review. Anything anyone wants to add? Take away?
Take away, anybody?
I tried. Okay, I'll take a motion on the agenda.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as written.
Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
What if he shows up on? Okay. Okay, we do have a non-public that's scheduled, but he's
We
not.
do have one other
here
action
this
item
time?
from the finance committee, I just realized that's not on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
You need to add the lunch price increase as an action item. under the committee.
Okay, so
What did you say?
Lunch
On the
price
lunch price
increase as an
increase.
action item.
do you want to make your motion as
I
amended?
amend my motion to add the action item of, also talk about lunch prices under the agenda.
Who seconded it?
Yes, second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
So we just added lunch prices for the discussion, for the information action. Okay, so, non-public, we're waiting, for the person that's supposed to go into non-public. He is not here yet, so we're going to move down to the approval of minutes for June 6th. Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of June 6th.
Do we have a second?
A second?
Any changes? You had one?
No.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. I don't think we had any, nope, everybody's here. All right. And you've had time to review the other minutes from the policy and the building and grounds. All right. Okay, board superintendent, principal, and student rep. We don't have a student rep yet, but we will.
I would let Jay begin because he's going to do a short presentation.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. Summer work. We have hired all faculty at this point. We hired 3 new positions, a Title I literacy teacher, a special education case manager, as well as a new Spanish teacher. We are still looking for I knew as of a few days ago, were 3 remaining paraprofessional positions, so if you know anyone who might be interested, please have them give the school a call. We, over the summer, are preparing to open, and we are in good shape at this point. We're going to be taking a few risks this year, very calculated risks moving into this new year. We're doing a lot more electronically than in years past, and each year we seem to do a little bit more. And this coming year, one of the major changes that what we're doing is on the first day of school, we usually, I should say, historically, we've sent home what we would call an emergency contact information sheet. We print it out from our system. We have kids bring it home, have mom, dad modify it as needed, update phone numbers, email, mailing addresses, what have you, and student brings it back in. With us going to a new student information system, we are going to attempt to get parents to do that electronically this year, so they can go right onto the website. They can modify the information themselves. There's certain information that can be changed without any oversight, such as an email or a phone number. Any addresses, any physical or mailing addresses that are going to get changed, they'll be flagged here at the school, which will then prompt us to reach out and make sure that they're still eligible, still living within one of the 2 towns. So a little less paper going home at the beginning of the year. Like I said, we've been making these small changes over the past few years, and this is the next phase of that. Tonight, you'll hopefully approve the changes to our handbook. Our handbook is something that is available online along with other beginning of the year documents, such as our emergency plan letter, the communication policy and statement for parents and kids to review. It's under Students and Parents tab on the website. It's under First Day Packet. What we will be doing once this handbook is approved, assuming that it is that we will, over the next few days, be updating all of our beginning of the year documents online. And will put us in a position to be ready to open. Okay. Regarding preparing to open, freshman parent information night, this is for our new students, is going to be on August 17th here at the school. I will be sending letters home to freshman parents, or I should say new student and freshman parents. Letter goes out this coming Monday, inviting them to that event. Letters are also going out to upperclassmen, informing them of a couple of beginning of the year things, first day of school, the change in our student information system as well. I will have the 3 new teachers here for an orientation on Wednesday the 24th. We have 2 teacher workshop days at the beginning of school this year on Monday and Tuesday, 28th and 29th, 2 days before the freshmen arrive on the 30th, and then everyone is here on the 31st on that Thursday, and we are back to business at that point. So everything at this point, everything's looking smooth. I'm excited about starting the school year. It's nice to get a lot of work done over the summer, but it can be awfully boring at the same time with no one around. So, new student representative to the school board will be at the next meeting. She was chosen, elected at the one of the student council meetings towards the end of the year. But it's summertime and she needs to have summer, so we'll have her here at the September meeting.
Anything else?
If there are no questions, I do have something else, which I can go right into unless you want to speak first. Okay. Last month I had presented, spoke a little bit about personalization in our mission statement. And so what I'd like to do What I'd like to do at each board meeting is kind of bring everybody up to speed on some of the more important issues, things that are going on within the school that allows you to be a little bit more knowledgeable about what's actually going on here, what we're doing, where we're going, where we've been. And so tonight I'd like to just talk to you about curriculum. For those of you that are unfamiliar with what curriculum is, curriculum is our blueprint of what we do here at the school. We take state and national standards, and we take those standards and then we put them at a local level, and we figure out how and what we're going to teach. And when I say what we're going to teach, there are some disciplines that have hundreds and hundreds of standards, and it would be impossible to actually teach them all. So our job as the educators go through and figure out which ones are essential. Which ones can we combine? Which ones can be taught in something other than, say, English class? Can a literacy standard be taught elsewhere and be covered elsewhere? And so when the school first opened years ago, our curriculum was all over the place, and in some cases absent. When we went through our accreditation process in 2009, we got our curriculum to a place where it worked for that moment in time. But things have changed a lot since then. We've had movements such as the Common Core or the science standards changing. We've had, in some cases, the Common Core go away, and how things are taught have changed, how things are assessed have changed. So curriculum is something that is ongoing, and so we are, for the past 4 years, we've been working on curriculum here at the school, and I had selected a template to use, a framework, and the framework is called Understanding by Design, and the document that I just passed out gives an overview in a nutshell of what understanding by design is. Now, if you're not in education, it may just seem like a lot of stuff. For some of us that are in education, it still seems like a lot of stuff, but what this template does is it serves as a guideline as to what we teach, and to a degree, how we teach it. So, if you're looking at this, if you start at the top left-hand box that says curriculum, I didn't number them, I apologize, I initially hoped to present, but ran into issues with technology. We're gonna go from that square in the top left to the square to the top right. That top right, Understanding by Design of UBD, primary goal of UBD, that is the synopsis of what Understanding by Design is. It is a way to combine your curriculum and put it into a template, a framework that is very easy to read, easy to understand, and then in theory, it is supposed to be easy to then apply. And the mindset is that if we build a curriculum and it has everything that the Understanding by Design, all 3 stages, and everything is filled out appropriately, when a new teacher comes aboard, I should be able to say, here's our algebra curriculum. It's in this beautiful template. It will tell you exactly what you need to do. What it doesn't tell you is how you should do it, because the instructional part of teaching is the creative part. That's the piece that you bring to the table, okay? In terms of what should be taught, we tell the teachers what should be taught And when I say we, I mean administration as a school. You indirectly tell teachers what should be taught. We get our information from state and national standards. The government tells us what is to be taught. So when understanding by design templates are created, they contain standards, national standards, state standards. So let me walk you through some of this, and if at any point in time you have a question, please ask. So we'll go from the top left to right, and then bottom left to right. Understanding by design, 3 stages of it, and stage 1 really entails what the standards are, what the goals are. Part 2 are the assessment piece. How do we measure whether or not we've succeeded in stage 1? And stage 3 is ultimately, how did we get there? What are the activities? What are the lesson plans and things of that sort? So if you look at stage 1, I'm not going to read it line by line. Many of you have read it at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about stage 1. Okay. Again, quick overview. This is where we outline what we want kids to know and what we want them to be able to do. So if I'm teaching, say, an economics class, I may have a unit that lasts for 2 weeks where I am going to explain to them supply and demand and equilibrium price. And one of my learning objectives will be for students to understand the difference between law of supply, law of demand, for students to understand equilibrium price. Another one of my objectives within that unit may be for students to design a supply and demand curve using a supply and demand graph. So within a particular unit, we have narrowed it down to particular learning targets. What do we want them to know? What do we want them to be able to do? And that information needs to be transferred somewhere. They need to be able to take that information and not just circle a C or fill in a C or underline or connect a line from the definition to the word. We need to know that they get it. And that's where those 6 facets of understanding come into play. Every kid should be able to explain, interpret, apply, give perspective, empathize, and self-assess. If they can do those 6 things, they know what they're supposed to know. We've done a good job teaching, they've done a good job learning. Okay? Moving on to stage 2. In stage 2, this is where we assess whether or not they've actually grasped this. So in stage 2, there are different buzzwords that are used. Oftentimes, we use the word performance tasks. This is where you're showing up to perform. It could be in the sense of a test, it could be a quiz in some cases, it could be a project, an authentic assessment. Science teacher, for example, they were building solar-powered ovens using tinfoil and sun, and they were making s'mores and roasting marshmallows or heating up marshmallows. It's the application of knowledge, and that's what we're trying to get them to do, to transfer what we've given them. And can they apply it? Can they use it? Is it practical? So in stage 2, this is where we are measuring those facets of understanding. Okay? Questions? Flipping over. Stage 3. The learning plan. This is where, I guess for the layman, the best way to think about this is your lesson plan. What are you going to do? Step by step, how are you going to get kids there? You've identified what your targets are. You've ultimately created what the assessment is going to be. What do you want them to know when all is said and done? This is where you're outlining, all right, what steps am I going to take? What are the activities? What are we going to do? And so here at Prospect, we have what's called formative assignments, and we have summative assignments. Formative assignments, I guess the best way to think of it is as practice. You do formative work here, you are doing practice. You are in the midst of stage 2, and a teacher is able to assess along the way. And they're saying, wow, all right, I'm gonna go to gym class with Jason here, okay? So the unit is basketball, okay? You good at basketball? Sure. No, I don't believe you. With basketball, so every day he gets out there, we've showed him how to dribble. We've given him literature and said, here's how you dribble. He's watched videos on how to dribble. We've actually had him go out there and dribble, okay? And during every gym class, he's out there and sometimes dribbling off his foot, sometimes tripping and falling, sometimes doing a great job. we're measuring and we're giving him feedback along the way saying, hey, this is what you're doing, this is what's working, this is what's not working. That's all what we consider formative work, okay? We're not gonna grade you on that practice, just like if it was a real game. Nobody cares how many times he dribbled off his foot during a practice, but we care how many times he dribbled off his foot during a game. Okay? And that's the difference between a formative and summative assessment. Summative is game time. That's where we're going to measure. Did all of the practice that we went through, does it add up? Can you perform in the performance task? And here at Prospect, summative work, summative assessment is valued at 80% of your final grade. And the logic behind that is it's time to show what you know. So if everybody's doing their job correctly, they're measuring Jason's ability along the way of being able to dribble. Okay, that's within the basketball unit. Shoot is in the basketball unit. Rebound, play defense, all of those are tinier standards within that larger unit. We've done formative work along the way to figure out if he can do all of those things. When we feel that he's there, we say, great, putting you in a game, let's see how you do. Now it's your summative assessment. If you can do all those things, you've met it, you've done it. Great, here's your grade. Now we can move on to tennis. You seem like a great tennis player. Okay? So, stage 3 actually outlines what are all those formative activities that you're going to do. How are you going to do them? How are you going to accomplish them? Okay? And again, stage 3 supports stage 2, which supports stage 1. That last slide in the top right is again just a synopsis of them all. So what we have been working on over the past 4 years is that we've made significant progress in stages 1 and 2. Stage 3 is always ongoing. People add to that list of here are some cool activities that you could do along the way. So we've been working on understanding by design for all of our courses for the past 4 years. This year, I would describe it as we're probably about 80% to the point where I would like to be. And this year, with a restructure of our CIA leadership, I'm hoping to hit maybe about the 95% done. And for some of it, it's a semantics issue. It's filling out the templates and filling in a couple of gaps that may have been overlooked. So we have understand by design templates for almost every course that we offer. I say almost because if we have a new course that's only been in existence for a year or only runs for a semester, they're not high priority courses, so we haven't taken the time to go at those as hard as we could. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, we're talking about personalizing education. Do these templates allow for reassessment of the teachers to kind of, I'm not gonna say start over, but to kind of realign how they're teaching students if in one way seems not to be working with that particular student?
Yeah, so this is a great question because it leads into that last slide that I want to talk about in a moment. But one of the unique things about Prospect is that for over the past 10 to 11 years, we've been making a lot of strides. We take this personalization thing to heart. We certainly don't do it as well as some extreme schools do, but we do a hell of a lot better than what a lot of schools do. And I don't want to say that in every class, every kid has an opportunity to relearn something. But I will say in the overwhelming majority of cases, that is true, okay? And there are different reasons as to why it's not. Sometimes it's just stubbornness of an instructor. Sometimes it's just the stubbornness or for lack of better phrases, laziness of a kid. There's that phrase, and I don't know how it goes, and I don't want to butcher it, but you can bring something to the horse in the water, but you can't get what is that phrase? You can't get the horse to drink the water, something like that? I don't know, I don't like horses. So, in that regard, those opportunities do exist, and I've never heard of a kid being denied of a situation when they've gone to a teacher and ask and say, I didn't get this at all, can you help me? I've never heard of a case where a teacher goes, no, I'm not going to. There's a lot of work that goes in on the front end to make sure that you do know the stuff and that you do feel comfortable and you are ready to take the performance task. But then there are also cases where you have to take it. I've given you plenty of opportunity. You've demonstrated right along with all these formatives that you know what you're doing. So you got to take it. I know you're nervous. Take it. And in some cases, kids do well. Some cases, kids don't. And for the kids that don't, you know, there is more opportunity than not to do something about that. But as the teacher, I give them complete autonomy and flexibility to handle that as they see fit. One of the things that I battle a lot with departments is on their policies about whether or not they should be allowed to retake or hand in something late without penalty. And even within a department, I'll use the math department, there's 6 members of the math department, and there's 6 different perspectives on what they think is the case. So the directive that I give them is that if you are teaching a common course, I expect the expectations to be the same. So if you two are teaching algebra, you're going to have the same expectations. I don't want an advantage for the kid in your class over the kid in your class. They'll be the same. However, you guys are teaching algebra. If the next 2 people are teaching pre-calc, they don't necessarily have to have the same policy that you have, but they have to have the same. And that's been the compromise that I've been able to strike with teachers over the years. And again, a lot of times it comes down to you guys sometimes not being on the same page and figuring it out. And I support in every way that I can. Okay? Did I answer your question no longer?
Yeah,
Roundabout
I
way?
just, you know, and I know, when I was growing up, I was really good at math, but geometry was a problem, and it took that, you know, you're looking for that aha moment. And sometimes you gotta, you know, my teachers were great, they worked around in different ways than the normal class was taught until that aha moment happened.
Yep, and that does happen. I think that's a luxury that high school has over what some elementary schools may have. I think my experience, especially over the past 3 or 4 years, is that you hear a lot, and you see a lot in media about, you know, Common Core math is teaching kids how to do math differently this year. Well, maybe that's the case, but there's no, at the end of the day, you want kids to know math. How they know math, I don't think, at least here, we don't care. We want you to be able to do math when all is said and done. So if you go home and dad showed you the old-fashioned way to do linear addition, great, because you can do linear addition. So there's no points off if you are doing it dad's way versus teacher's way. And I think that at the high school level, teachers feel a little bit more comfortable having that flexibility to, at the end of the day, I don't care how you learn it, I want you to learn. And if I can help in any different way, I will.
So they wouldn't be penalized for, because I know they have to show their backup.
You have to show work, but again, if the assessment that you're taking requires you to show work, okay? If that's the expectation, and you know that expectation going into, say, the test, and you choose just to go, oh, you know, the square root of 155 is 6, and you just give an answer, you could see how it raises concern.
But what I mean is, what if your work is the old-fashioned way, not the present way?
Well,
I mean,
you don't,
because
you
there are
don't
kids
lose,
that learn
yeah, you don't
one way
lose
far
points.
better than the other.
You don't lose points. I should say here at the local level of our assessments, you don't lose points for that. Teachers
on the
want to see,
SATs or
right,
something.
on some of the standardized tests, you may. And they just want to, believe it or not, it's one of their ways to prove that you're not cheating.
Well,
is
the
if
reason
they
why I
can
ask
see
is I
your
know, like,
rationale.
at the elementary level, they're reverting back to phonics-based versus, you know, the phonics was how I learned it growing up, and then it switched to some other thing for years, and now it's going back to phonics, which makes sense because, you know, but it's like the pendulum is always swinging in some sort of different direction. I mean, looking at the competency-based, are we eventually going to be, because I know some schools no longer have per se grades, because when you're competent in that subject, then you move to the next level versus taking the class for the entire year and then, oh, I get to go to the next class.
Yes. So let's transition into this because it overlaps. I should go back and just, the shorter answer is yes. Kids do have that opportunity. Teachers have that. And I have a lot of faith in that 99.9% of the teachers here take that option if it's there. So the question here, competency-based education, I'm going to tell you straight up, I'll put my cards on the table, I'm not a proponent of CBE, and I haven't been. And my reason for it is that I do see the benefits to it, I do. It makes sense in theory, it makes sense. Every book that I've read about it, every presentation I've gone and see, I leave and I go, it makes sense. But like every other decision that I've had to make for the school, I look to see if it's applicable to us, if it would be in our best interest. And when I look at this, I think we would have to do an awful lot in order to switch gears, completely shift a paradigm to instruct and assess and report in a completely different way. And I have yet to see any data anywhere on some of the, I've gone to nationally renowned speakers, and nobody has presented me with data, and I cannot locate it anywhere, and I challenge anybody to present this. Cannot find data indicating that students are better prepared for the real world and/or college because their school is a competency-based assessment school.
Colorado is the state that does it.
New Hampshire, believe it or not, is a forerunner on CBE. We were in it from their early stages. CBE is not new. It was around during the 90s. It was big during the 90s, and parents revolted primarily because they went, you know what, we can't tell what our kids are really good at, what our kids are really bad at, because as soon as they are proficient in something, they go on to the next thing, and we want a little bit more accountability. And so that pendulum swung a different way. What happened, happened.
But
Sorry.
is there mastery?
Well, define mastery.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you talk about, you know, the kid that was with the basketball. So when he finally got from one end to the other, was he just competent or was he proficient?
Great question. And on top of that, does he have to continue to do that? And if so, for how long?
Exactly.
So I give you my perspective on competency-based.
I have reservations about competency-based.
To be honest with you, I have dragged my feet with this for a long time. I've met with other administrators. There are people that I've hired that have come from CBE schools, and they get here and they during that interview process, when I have them one-on-one and I ask them how they feel about it, everybody always says, oh, it's great.
Is this
Really
where
loved it.
the pendulum is starting to
Right.
go to? Is
Well-
that what you think?
No, the pendulum's already there. There are schools throughout the state of New Hampshire that are 100% in this, doing this
But
as we speak.
competency-based was more like in the 80s.
It was, yeah, it started in.
Right,
and-
and it got thrown out.
Yep.
Eventually, it got thrown
Yes,
out.
it
Now
did.
it's come back.
Yes, it has.
Like a bad penny.
There are schools who jumped on this 7 or 8 years ago when the state first said every school should design competencies. And back in, it was my second year here, 2007, we designed competencies, and we kept going and we kept saying to the state, what are they? And they would say, oh, you just write them of what students need to know. And we went, okay, do you have any examples we could look at? And they went, no, just write them. And so we wrote them and we put them in a drawer and we didn't worry about them because they weren't applicable. So meanwhile, there are some schools, we have 2 communities surrounding us that just went full steam ahead, and they did it. The sales pitch went in, and those powers that be went in and said, this is the best thing, this is the future of education, you have to do this, must do this, and they did it. And I don't want to speak for them. I've spoken to people, and I've spoken to some who say, yeah, I can see its benefit, and then I've spoken to some who say, I want to leave the business because of this stuff. So there's different mindsets on it. Me personally, I'm not a fan. But I think it's worth bringing to your attention. I want to pass this out to you. I don't expect you to read it, but it summarizes thoughts on CBE, and I think it does it in a fairly neutral way. This organization conducted some research, and actually Prospect was part of the research that they did. And so what I would encourage you to do is give this a read on your own, and we can certainly talk about it in the future if it's to be put on an agenda. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to turn it over real quick. On the bottom of it, competency-based education practices. There are 6 things that are listed there, starting with learning targets. So one of the things I started doing with the staff years ago is that we started taking characteristics of competency-based education, and we started applying them to our system. So rather than jumping in the pool, completely submerging ourselves, I looked at it and had a lot of dialogue and a lot of reading and figured out what worked and what didn't work, and applied what I thought was best for our kids. And that's what I continue to do. So when you go down this list, for example, start with learning targets. Explicit learning targets for or competencies based on rigorous standards are established and shared with students. Okay? As part of our understanding by design, those exist. They're there. Teachers are asked on a daily basis to share their learning goals, their daily learning goals with kids. Now, not all people do. They could do a better job of doing that, and I could do a better job of managing that. But they are asked to do that. Share learning objectives with your kids. Skip down to when and where learning takes place. Students have flexibility regarding when and where they learn and may participate in projects, online coursework, internships, and other learning activities outside the school setting. We do all of that. eSTAR, dual credit, VLAX, internships, externships, work studies, independent studies, all of those things exist. We have policies on extended learning opportunities that you guys have put in place and tweaked for years. It's there, we're doing it. So when you look at what competency-based education is, we have a lot of those characteristics already. There are a couple of gaps, there are a couple of holes that certainly could be addressed, and it's a slow process, it's a slow discussion, which I'm perfectly fine in having with staff and having with you. The one aspect of competency-based education that we don't do as well is the very bottom, pacing and progression. In the ideal CBE school, a kid can go through a course at his or her own pace, and when you're done meeting all of the standards, you're done, you move on. So logistically, what that could look like is tough for me to comprehend. If you started algebra class and were just good at it, which I assume you are, so here we are 3 months into school and he's flying through algebra class and all of a sudden he goes, done, I'm proficient in all the standards. What do I do with him? CBE, I would put him in geometry and say, all right, here you go. Logistically, scheduling wise, it's a nightmare. I don't know how to make that happen. So the pacing and the progression is one aspect of CBE that it's tough. You could have a brilliant kid. I think of some of our valedictorians over the past years and others who haven't been valedictorians. They could probably demonstrate competency in 2 years. And then what?
Right. I think if I go and have an operation on my brain, which I hope that never happens, I really want the doctor to be proficient.
Yeah.
Not just
Yeah, I hope so.
And that's the way I look at it. I mean,
So, there are folks who, I know out in the community, I've seen it in social media, who have made comments such as, the high school doesn't have competencies, and that's not true. We have competencies. We don't have 100% competency-based education here. Much of that is my choice because I don't think it would work here, to be honest with you. Two, I think we already do a lot of the greatest aspects and characteristics of CBE. We already do. Because of the system that we have, the culture that we have, the teachers that we have, the kids that we have. We're not a traditional high school in the sense. And if you've attended any of our events from graduation to parent nights, it's a different vibe. This place has something special. And I think us hopping on the wagon of CBE just because it's the wave right now is risky.
If you take the best of all worlds, which is what you guys have done with this school. You've taken a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of that, and put it together and put forth a fantastic program.
I think it's working. I look at what we're producing, and it's tough for me to think about any of the kids that are leaving here. Are there some who are not ready? Of course. Absolutely. I mean, we're not 100%. Nobody's 100% in anything. But when I look at kids who walk across that stage, they've done it. They've done what they were supposed to do. They've done it well. They've become better people. It's not just about academics. They're culturally a better person. They have good hearts. They have good perspectives on things.
And even the ones that may have taken a different path other than graduation have also excelled in a lot of areas that they've gone to.
Certainly.
Certainly. Hopefully.
Yep. And
not seeing you in your jail.
So, again, I encourage you, what I've presented you with is kind of a down the middle. It tells you what it is. It tells you what their research indicated. They researched schools that were competency-based, and they researched schools that were not. And at the end of the day, they said, You know, I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done to determine whether a CVE school is worth the effort in changing to. Because it's not just a change in how you teach. It's a change. I mean, you think about the elementary school report card that you got for your kid when they were in first or second grade.
Satisfactory, not
You wanted to
satisfactory.
know that your kid was good with the alphabet and good with the first 10 numbers. Do you want to know all of the particular details of the units of U.S. History Part 1 and all of the units, all the standards involved in narrative writing? Something tells me most people at this level want to go through and say, you doing well? Now, again, that's a generalization and it's a little off topic. If you want to do your own research or bring it back, if you want to have conversation, not at a board meeting, come in and chat. I'm happy to have conversation. This is an important topic. You guys play a significant role in this. If you look at me and say, we should go in this route, I'm going to do the best I can to lead the school in this route, whether I personally agree with it or not. And if you tell me not to, I'm going to do the best I can to lead the school in the best way that I can. But this is a decision that you all have to weigh in just as much as me.
Is there a New Hampshire Department of Education directive on competency-based assessments
There is. The
Can you explain
directive, the directive is that, and it's funny because it's such a play on words. They wanted competency assessments. You know, they wanted, it started with assessments being the thing. Every school had to have competency assessments in place, which allowed for, the original wording was allowing for students to test out of a class, accelerated. So we went through, and many of us disagreed with it, but we went through and we jumped through the hoops and we created a procedure for Jason to test out of physical science class.
He's so smart.
It's only because you're sitting next to me. I'm doing the same thing. So we created practices and procedures for kids to test out of classes. Almost every single one of our classes, you can test out of if you truly wanted to. We don't recommend it because when we put that instrument in front of you, hey, you for art class, you have to produce 11 pieces of art. And you're not getting the instruction on how to do it, but the expectation is, hey, these are all the things you need to know and be able to do if you took our course. So naturally, that's what you should be able to do without taking our course. And so we've had kids along the way who have tested out of certain courses. English has been the number one. Some kids are excellent readers and writers, and that's the primary focus behind our literacy courses, reading and writing. If you can do those things, and you're in good shape. So the state started with the competency assessment thing. They haven't come out and said all schools need to be competency-based education. They want schools to have policies in place where that can happen and that is encouraged. But to the best that I have looked, I cannot find anywhere that says a school needs to be competency-based.
It's not mandatory.
But again, I think I could be wrong. Maybe I just have not found it.
So it's recommended but not mandatory.
I guess that's the best way to look at it. But again, I want to go on record as saying if Mike shows up with a policy and says, no, they said that you have to, I'm going to say, okay, great. I can't find it. I don't know where it is. I can find everything where all of their suggestions of what we should do and how we should do this and do that. And again, I look at it all and say, we do all of that. We just don't package it in that pretty package and label it CVE. But we give kids extended learning opportunities. We give kids the opportunities to retake and redo and reassess. We create opportunities for individualized learning. And that doesn't mean that the teacher doesn't lecture at the front of the class. It means that the teacher identifies you're having an issue and offers extra assistance to you. So if you have thoughts or questions, I'm happy to answer them now. And again, I think it's ongoing discussion that we continue to have.
I have another question about UBD. So is that process specifically working towards what the requirements are for reaccreditation? Is that part of that process?
It will certainly make our reaccreditation process easier. For me, going to UBD, it seemed like the right thing to do to make it systematic throughout the school, make it uniform throughout the school. When we went through accreditation the first time, we created curriculum, but it consisted more of just taking the standards and putting them into a document and saying this was our curriculum. It was a good step. So it's almost like our curriculum from 7 or 8 years ago was just stage 1 and a little bit of stage 2. So we're expanding upon that now. So what we currently have is still relevant, and a lot of we've been able to cut and paste into this new framework. But this new framework looks at the main ideas. Are we really transferring versus just saying, I need to teach the STAMP Act? Now we're saying, we need to teach the STAMP Act. Why? How does it relate? Are kids going to know the STAMP Act? Are they going to use it further on? And maybe being so finite to say we need to teach the STAMP Act is irrelevant now. Maybe it's more about we're teaching causes of the American Revolution versus just the STAMP Act. But it will help.
What is AIR?
It's the American Institute of Research. AIR.org, I think. Is
And where are they based?
I think Quincy, Mass.
Regional Deeper Learning Initiative. Okay, I was just curious about that.
Is there any further questions? Do you have a comment? Oh, okay.
DC.
Jay, you finished?
DC. Can be, yes. Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
I have a quick follow-up item from a few meetings ago. We were able to mediate the pending Superior Court appeal through a memorandum of agreement that was begun during negotiations last year and was finalized in negotiations late this spring, early summer, through a cooperative effort with the Prospect Mountain Teachers Association. Both parties have agreed to language to be contained in the new CBA that began effective this past July 1st. The appeal has been dropped as a result. I appreciate the efforts of the board negotiations team and the negotiations team of the Prospect Mountain Teachers Association in resolving this matter in a mutually beneficial manner. So, thanks to all that were involved.
Yes, thank you all. All right. Anything else?
Good.
Anything else, Chad?
Good, thank you.
Oh, okay. So we're going to move on to committee reports. Obviously, you just updated pretty much what Eunice would have stated, correct?
We'd like to welcome Everett to the negotiation committee.
Yes. Welcome.
What? Where was I?
Okay, policy committee. Who's handling policy? Oh.
So the policy committee had a work meeting today because we didn't have a quorum. And we're going to be presenting the wellness policy for the board's approval. And this policy was, we worked on this because it was required by the state audit during the that audited the food services. So it's been put forth. Do we have the one that was with the packet was an old draft?
This one's an old draft.
On the wellness policy, there were quite a few changes, and this was the May version. She was,
Do you want to, since we might not, do you have, are those the copies?
Yeah.
If we don't have the copy, do you want to table this to the next meeting? Do we have time to, or is it something that has to be approved right now?
Then we make it the first meeting in September. Let's do that.
Do you want to table this, we'll table it till then? Okay. And we'll just make sure that we get the correct one in the packet. Because it seems like a lot of changes on it. Additions.
Yeah.
yeah, but there are changes beyond the draft that you have here, so you should table it. And then in your packet, you had a copy of the combined faculty and staff handbook. So this was revised and updated and combined, so Sharon did a lot of work to take the faculty and the staff handbooks, which were separate, and combine those to avoid duplication. And we have the version that's here tonight maybe is just missing a couple of things that were done today, but they didn't change any meaning. It was more grammatical stuff. The only thing that really changed that was significant compared to what you have in your packet is on page 37. Let me look at that page just to make sure I'm right. No, that's the wrong page. Oh, I might not have the same pages.
25?
Yeah, I think my draft didn't have the same. Well, the section about parking, staff parking was just taken out. It was one,
34 in this.
okay. Page 34. So that was just deleted. That was the only change compared to what you have here that was significant, and that's because it's covered in the employee intake process, so it really wasn't relevant. Didn't really tell us much there anyways. So the policy committee recommends that the board approve this combined faculty and staff handbook for this year.
So moved.
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
And the committee also will be getting new policy recommendations soon from New Hampshire School Board Association. We'll be working on that. Another thing we discussed today is a change in handling the academic probation policy in relation to sports participation and some of the co-curricular participation. I'll let Jay explain that.
Sure. To summarize it, I'm looking for your support in having the autonomy to hold kids accountable academically in terms less than report cards. As it is now, you have to pass the quarter before and eligible to be in order to be eligible for the sport. What we'd like to do is give administration prerogative to put kids on academic probation should their grades fail or should their grades fall below passing while in season. If that made sense. Did I
You
explain
might
that
want
right?
to explain what athletic probation is.
So academic probation for athletes. If you fail 2 courses, you are ineligible to participate in sports. If you fail 1 course on a weekly basis for the remainder of that season, you have to go to all of your teachers at the end of the week and get their signature saying that you are in good academic standing for their class. And this is a method that we use to make sure kids are not slipping through the cracks and doing what they're supposed to be doing academically. But the downside to that is that a student could pass all of their classes for 4th quarter and then be eligible to play soccer, and then 2 weeks into school not care about any academics and fail. Progress reports could come out and they're failing 5 classes, but they're still eligible to play sports according to our current policy. So this would just be a way that we can have a little bit more oversight in monitoring kids who are failing during season. And so the process would ultimately be me meeting with kids, either myself or the athletic director reaching out to coaches and parents to let them know that student is going to be placed on academic probation for the additional support.
So in our discussion, the committee talked about the fact that this doesn't really require an actual policy change because academic probation already exists. It's just the principal communicating to the audience involved that this will be the standard to meet and this is a possibility in season, or even for robotics or drama club if grades fail.
The only penalty for being on probation is that you have to bring the paper to the coach once a week, unless you don't improve.
Correct.
And then you get a consequence.
And if it's not part of the policy and the administration has flexibility, we can kind of monitor it to look at the entire circumstance rather than being very punitive and saying, you're failing, no, there's no discussion. There might be a reason. Student could have been absent for a number of days and just not got the work in. Student may have not performed well on a summative assessment, but had been doing well on the formative assessments leading up to it. So this just gives us a little bit more ability to work with kids and families.
Any further questions on that?
Well, I guess I'm confused, because if you're failing, you get put on probation. Does that mean you get suspended
No.
until those grades go to passing?
No, if you're on academic probation, on a weekly basis, you get that report filled out. If you're in good standing, you're eligible to play. If you're failing a course, you're not eligible to play.
So while they're in their failing stage,
Right, you're not eligible to play until that following week. If you have 2 consecutive weeks of failing, then you're removed from the team.
gotcha.
That's the consequence.
That's
I
academic
just,
probation.
you can fail, just
Yeah.
sign that you've done good for the week. That was my interpretation of it.
Now, this way he can work with the students to improve their education, their academics, rather than just telling them, that's it.
And I explained to the committee as well that we're not talking about a large portion of kids. And my hope is that in communicating this out to students and parents, that we can head off some of it before it even becomes an issue.
I just find it interesting that the elementary school, it's a C that you put on probation. In high school, you can have an F and a D minus. And you wouldn't be put on probation unless you had 2 Fs.
Yeah.
I've battled this every single year that I cannot wrap my mind around the fact that an athlete can play with an F. But it is what it is. It's a losing battle. I've battled all these years, so I can't fathom it. But anyways, I digress. Is there any other updates on the policy?
No?
Okay, and not leaving you, finance.
I don't think there are going to be buildings and grounds in between. Okay.
You're right. Terry.
Buildings Ground had a very good meeting. We were done in great time tonight. Mr. Collison reported to us about the work camp, New England. It was here for a week, working on people's homes that were eligible to get things done to their home. There were 200 students here. And they felt it went off without a hitch. He also reported about the operations plan, which needs to be, the emergency response operations plan, which needs to be sent to the DOE by September 1st. And he assures us that the plan's all set and ready to go. We discussed the solar a little bit, and we've kind of decided that we feel that we should probably table it. We've had a couple more requests to do solar within the school.
But
So
the
we're going
Lakes
to table that until we
region-
have a little more information.
Planning Commission.
Yeah, the Lakes Region Planning Commission is meeting and discussing about making it a regional.
Well, they're looking at a regional aggregation process where they would be able to pull the electrical costs and then put it out to the towns and the schools at a rate of 20 to 40% savings. So it would be as much or more than we would be saving by going to solar, just maintaining what we currently have. So we want to wait until some of these things flesh out and we have some better information before we jump into any decisions.
Like I said before, the track, the repair will begin on the 14th and hopefully be finished by the 17th. Let's see, what else? The board, Building and Ground recommends that the board approve a slight change to the full-time lead custodian on second shift job description. Did you bring one of those for everybody?
I did not, yeah.
Okay. The only things that are being
Yeah.
taken out of it is in the job description, which was approved back in 2012.
We have them. She's gonna hand them out.
the night lead person will not be responsible for doing the repairs to electrical and plumbing and stuff like that. And also on the backside, you'll see that we've removed sweeping the gym floor and washing it, and removed mopping the cafeteria and the kitchen floors. And the reason that was done is because it's done in the morning. It's not done on the second shift, so. I guess, I don't know if you want motions now, or you want to wait?
Yeah, and then as a little bit of explanation, this was something that Terry mentioned was put in place in 2012, and we had a person in that position for, I think, about a little under a year, was it? Basically, the reason for this is to be a conduit between the night shift and the director of maintenance, so that, you know, the lead custodian at night oversees the other custodians. If there's any issues, they would report to him, and then he would then go to the director of maintenance. So it kind of gives like a supervisory position for the night shift.
Better communication.
Correct, yeah. So this was a slight modification, so Building and Grounds recommended that the full board approve the job description change. So I'll make a motion that we approve the modified job description for the full-time lead custodian for the second shift.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on that?
I have a question. How many custodians are on second shift? How many custodians are currently on
I
second shift?
think Andy can answer that. Four. Is there any further questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
The other thing that we discussed was a differential in pay, and the board, the Building and Grounds Committee would like to recommend that we add $1 an hour to the person that is the lead custodian, the full-time lead custodian on second shift.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Is there any discussion on that?
It's in the budget.
We have money in the budget?
We'll find it.
It's a position that is needed this year. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, what else did we discuss? Let's see. We discussed the enrollment projections, and we also tabled that, and asked the superintendent to get some more information on that. Did you have something you wanted to say?
About the team leader differential, we have one qualified staff person in the evening, so we would like to award that position to that person. We don't have the personnel paperwork prepared because this just happened at the meeting prior to this one, so we'll be asking to award this position to Tracy.
Labor.
What was it?
Tracy
Labor.
Labor.
Labor. Couldn't think of his last name. Tracy Labor.
I thought you were like,
I was trying to get some help from the guy. And he's waving to me. He's not.
so I'll make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for Tracy Labor to be the second shift full-time lead custodian. Do we have a
I will
second?
second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. We also discussed some gym safety, and Andy's working on that to come up with something to present to us. And we also discussed the condition of the acoustic panels that are in the gym. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but they're not in the best of shape after
Peeling.
14 or below, that is. So he's going to come up with something with that. That's about it.
Something that might, for budget, probably for budget
Right,
time for next year. Okay, any questions for Building and Grounds? Okay, seeing none, Finance Committee, you're back.
So the Finance Committee reviewed the financials, which were essentially for the end of last school year. And the estimated amount of available funds that will go back to the towns is expected to be between 450 and 500,000, but that will be, it's not a firm number. That will be, there's an audit the first week of October, which will really determine what that number is. The bulk just to give a quick description of what the bulk of that number is according to the financials now. The largest portion was salary, health, and retirement, and general education. The billable expenses to other districts, special ed, and building and maintenance were the main components that made up those available funds. We also recommend to the board that we accept the funds of 3 federal grants. So I'll read those out. So there's a federal grant, Title I, $77,540.19. This grant funds the PMHS Title I program, which offers a literacy program to Title I students. Do we need to do them separately?
Yeah, I think we can do them all at once, can't we?
We do them all.
Yeah.
Federal grant IDEA, $116,834.21. This grant funds special education services. Federal grant Title IIA, $17,967.61. This grant provides teachers research and writing opportunities to enhance the writing program.
I make a motion to accept all 3 grants as read.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I have one question about the end of year funds. Have we allocated any of that money to, encumbered it for anything?
$25,000.
25 for what?
It was for me,
CIA
for the
leader,
co-curricular stuff.
yeah.
Co-curricular stuff, okay.
Yeah.
And that came
Last
before the board?
meeting. Last meeting.
That's great.
Yeah.
125, right?
That has to be encumbered
25,000
by,
total.
Right.
that has to be encumbered by June 30th, correct?
50 is double that.
All right, that was my only question.
We also discussed improvement of instruction. And we recommend to the board that the board does not withdraw funds from the capital reserve fund at this time, and that available funds be used.
So the Finance Committee voted, and the motion failed to withdraw the funds from the Improvement of Instruction Capital Reserve Fund. So we're bringing it forth to the full board. The existing funds were already used out of our regular operating budget. So the question is, do we want to take monies out of the Improvement of Instruction Fund, Capital Reserve Fund, or just status quo as is?
So there wasn't a budget line item for this
Right.
in the budget.
So that would be last
So
year's
it's
funds?
hanging out there, and it could either be drawn
And they've
from
already
the
been
reserve
spent
fund,
out of last year's
it's been
budget.
spent.
It's
So
always,
it's mainly keeping it.
oh, right, okay, the money's been spent.
Yeah.
Oh, you were making a face.
Oh, no, I'm listening to all 3.
Well, either way, we have to fill that count.
If we take the money out, we
Right.
have to
If we
fill it.
take it out,
If
it's
we don't
gotta go
take it
back
in,
in,
yeah,
so
so if we
The
just.
money's already been raised and appropriated, we might as well just use that.
And
rather
the
than
amount,
raise
I
and
should have
appropriate
said, the
more.
amount is $45,270.86, with Alton at 55%, 55.13%, 24,912.55, and Barnstead at 44.97%, 20,358.31.
So we would need to make a positive motion to withdraw the funds from the Improvement of Instruction Fund, and then vote.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to remove the funds from wherever they are.
Improvement of Instruction
Improvement of
Capital
Instruction
Reserve
Capital
Fund.
Reserve Fund.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
The only discussion would be that the Finance Committee does not recommend.
Yes. So, all those in favor? All those opposed? Unanimous for opposed. Positive motion.
Yes, the positive.
Okay, we also reviewed our upcoming budget schedule and added the action item of a lunch price increase that was recommended by the Food Services Director, increasing lunch from $2.75 to $3. It would not affect breakfast. Do you have anything to add on that, Heidi? or?
Just this is mandatory, we do have to do an increase. He completed the paid lunch equity tool, and it told us that we needed to raise our price to at least $2.86, but we're recommending raising it a quarter to $3, and that will give us a few years where we won't have to raise it.
Who's telling us that we need to raise
The
our?
Federal
food
government.
service director.
Excuse me?
Oh, the federal government, yeah, sorry.
Since when does the federal government tell us how much we charge for
Because
lunch?
we have federal money that we receive for, you know,
Free and
non,
reduced.
yeah,
Yeah.
reduced lunch, free and reduced lunch.
Okay?
So
If
in
they want to
order-
pay $3, they can.
Mhm.
Why do we have to make everybody else pay that?
Is it to get your federal funds?
Yes.
What?
It's to get the federal funds. In order to continue getting the federal funds, you have to raise it up.
Yeah.
Or you can not take the federal funds.
If you don't, if the
I
school board,
I don't think that's right. I don't think that's,
if you don't, then the price difference, the food service department will still get it, but it'll come out of the general fund to replace the difference if you don't raise it to at least the 286.
This is what year 3 or 4 that we've had to do this? A couple of years we've had to do it anyways.
At least 3.
3 years, yeah. That we've had to do this every single year.
Yeah.
I always vote no, so move the question.
So,
I make a motion that we raise the price for lunch to $3 for breakfast, right? Breakfast.
no breakfast.
Not breakfast, just lunch.
Just
And the a la
À
carte.
la carte.
a la carte will be raised,
Yeah. By 25 cents?
yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I have a second.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? We'll all be voting under protest, but this, okay, all those in favor?
Actually, I have discussion. How much does it cost to do away with lunch money, period? Everybody
And have
gets-
everybody bag their lunch?
No, everybody gets free. Then you don't have to follow the federal guidelines.
Well, our food
Seems like
service
more lucrative.
budget is what?
$270,000?
Yeah.
And how much do we get from federal? I know we're asking you these questions and you're not prepared, I'm sorry. Ballpark.
Yeah, 150, maybe, 100, between 100 and 150. I really have to look.
So it costs
So the bottom line is federal government.
$450,000 a year.
Gotcha.
The federal government does not want other kids paying less than what they're gonna pay for free and reduced. Is that how this is all gonna?
They don't want, I don't.
Was it a formulary that they has to plug in to tell us how much we have to pay and compared to what we get for federal money, basically?
Yeah, it's a spreadsheet that you plug in numbers.
You see, the way I remember hearing about it was that the federal government didn't want to pay, if they were going to pay $3, which was the going rate at this point, then everybody else has to be paying $3. Does that not sound familiar?
I guess I'm not following you, so.
What do they reimburse for a meal?
I believe it's for lunch, $2.40, I think.
All right, so they're reimbursing $2.40. So why can't we charge $2.40? Do you understand where I'm coming
I
from?
know what you're saying. I didn't make the rules.
Because that's the problem. The rule says they made them, came up with this formula, that, you know, we would have to charge a minimum of $2.86. I think rather than giving kids 14 cents change every day,
Yeah.
and, you know, having to do this every year like we've done the last couple of years, the food director's recommending that we just go ahead, bite the bullet, make it a quarter, and not have to do it for several years.
I think we've gone up every single year in Barnstable.
We haven't, we've gone 3 years,
No, because last time he raised it, he did the same thing.
yes.
So any further discussion?
We had that broken out.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
You don't have to.
Opposed? 1. I understand, I totally agree.
I understand.
Okay. Finance committee's all set?
All set?
All right. So we're going to go on to action items. The student parent handbook. Who's doing this one?
Well, it's, hopefully you've had time to review it. These are the changes that we're making to this year's student parent handbook. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions, comments, recommendations?
Could you give the general explanation of what the changes involved, like you did with the policy?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Could you give the general
General.
explanation of the changes involved?
A lot of it are semantics. In places where we've previously have said, like, you know, we will do this. For example, page 16 under disciplinary procedures, change the sentence from a phone call will be made to a phone call or email. Sometimes email is more effective, quicker, more efficient than phone. So it's been a lot of word changes. And again, I think they're just consistent with the times and methods of communication. There's a lot of, I would say the biggest theme to this is that we're going to try something new with no passes this year, no hard copy passes. Everything's going to be done through our student information system. We've been weeding passes out over the past 3 or 4 years. This is the final phase of doing that. We're going to give it a shot. Hopefully it works. And I think that summarizes a lot. Everything is really having to change.
Language.
Yeah, having to change language, not necessarily any practice. The only change in practice is the no pass thing. And doing that results in language changes in a lot of other areas.
And then the new system that we're going to be using.
That's the reason that we're going to try the no pass thing is you know, the shift to the new system. It's going to be difficult for everybody, so we're just going to pile on that level of difficulty right at the beginning.
Is there any questions in regards to these changes? So you need a motion for this?
Please.
We'll take a motion on the changes to the student parent handbook.
I move we accept the changes to the student parent handbook as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Personnel.
Okay, this is a little lengthy.
Yay.
If you'll recall, back in June, we had our last meeting, you had given me the authority to make some hires this summer, so I just want to call it wow. Now, we had a couple of positions that we did need to replace, so I'm bringing these forward to the board so we can get your approval on the decisions that I made this past summer. For Spanish teacher, we hired Michelle Clark, who's coming to us with experience working in Kingswood Regional School District as a Spanish teacher. Do you want me to do all of them?
Do you want to do one at a time, or do you want to do a blanket?
Blanket.
Okay.
She's replacing Chris Donovan. We are also offering a position as a Title I teacher for English literacy to Patrice Camo. She'll be replacing James Safinas. We're also offering part-time guidance administrative assistant position to Charlotte Jager, who's replacing Liz Laughlin, who's previously been moved to the media center. We're offering a position to Joe Farber from Wolfboro, New Hampshire, who's coming on as a coach.
Varsity boys basketball?
Yes. Case manager position to Karen Gunderson, who's replacing Joe Lehman. And then I have some pass outs.
Boy, you've been busy.
Yeah, we had a lot of people replace.
So one thing.
Yes. We're replacing an evening custodian position. Harry Wade is replacing James Parker.
We need to do this first, obviously, and this first. Resignations will go first before we do that.
You want to do the resignations first?
No, you can handle all this up, but when we do the motions, we have to do the resignations first, and then we'll do the hiring.
And then I have Anthony Morganelli replacing David Bassett. And then there's a new position, special ed paraeducator, Taylor Coate. This is a new position, it's in the budget for 2018. And then we had a couple of resignations, which we'll have to vote on in the process. We have a resignation request from James Parker resigning his position as custodian effective May 31st. We had a resignation from Christopher Donovan expressing that he'll be leaving here to go to Exeter High School, and talks about how he enjoyed his career here at Prospect Mountain High School.
So I'll take a motion on the two resignations.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of James Parker and Christopher Donovan.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we'll do the blanket motion on the hiring.
I make a motion to accept all the hires as read by the superintendent.
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. All right. Anything further? We're gonna do that probably after. We'll just leave it here. Okay, any more public input? Seeing none, we'll close public input. And we are going to actually be going into non-public under RSA 91-A:21B, which will be in regards to legal counsel. So, Everett? Say yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
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 So we are in non-public. Thank you